The moment an American crosses into Canada, the landscape shifts in ways that are almost imperceptible at first. Familiar roads stretch ahead, familiar storefronts line the streets, and English signs point the way. Yet beneath that surface familiarity, a quieter rhythm begins to take hold. The atmosphere feels softer, steadier, almost muted compared to the charged energy so characteristic of life in the United States. It's a contrast that unfolds slowly, like realizing the background noise that once filled daily life has suddenly faded. That silence isn't emptiness, it's cultural gravity, drawing them into a new emotional climate. What Americans often notice first is the unexpected calm in public spaces. Airports, train platforms, and downtown streets carry movement, but not urgency. Conversations drift in gentler tones. People pause instead of push. Even small interactions feel different. The brief smile from a cashier, the driver who waves someone through instead of accelerating, the soft sorry offered automatically in passing. These gestures aren't performance. They are instinctive patterns woven into Canadian social behavior. And for many Americans, the atmosphere feels strangely disarming, as if the country itself operates at a slightly lower emotional frequency. The sensory shift continues in everyday routines. Measurements change. Milk comes in liters instead of gallons. Money feels lighter, smoother, marked with bright blues and purples instead of the deep green of home. Streets, even busy ones, carry an orderly patience. Drivers follow rules with a level of consistency that feels almost ceremonial. Public signs blend English and French effortlessly, a bilingual presence that underscores Canada's layered identity. And for Americans accustomed to more direct communication, the subtlety in Canadian interactions often feels like a cultural puzzle, gentle, measured, and quietly observant. Then there is the weather and unspoken force that defines daily life far beyond simple temperature. Winter arrives not as a disruption, but as an entire season of rituals. Snowplows glide through neighborhoods before dawn. Sidewalks are cleared with practiced efficiency, and children walk to school bundled in layers that would seem extreme in most parts of the US. Canadians don't simply endure winter. They move through it with a calm acceptance shaped by generations of adaptation. And in that resilience, Americans often notice a different national temperament tone built on preparation, cooperation, and a quieter form of toughness. As the days unfold, another contrast emerges, a cultural emphasis on consideration. Lines form more naturally. Voices stay measured, even in crowded spaces. People thank bus drivers as if it were an unspoken rule shared by all. What first feels like politeness gradually reveals itself as something deeper, a commitment to harmony in the shared spaces of everyday life. This collective gentleness becomes one of the most striking early differences, shaping not just interactions, but the emotional temperature of entire cities. Over time, Americans begin to notice that beneath Canada's gentle surface lies a set of cultural values that diverge sharply from those of the United States. The most defining difference is the way Canadians approach community. It appears in small details: show neighbors shovel snow without being asked, how drivers merge with near ritual patience, how public disagreements rarely escalate beyond calm voices. These behaviors aren't isolated acts of kindness. They form a framework of collective responsibility that quietly shapes daily life. It's a mindset built on the belief that society functions best when everyone participates in maintaining its balance. This contrast extends into conversations about work, ambition, and success. In the US, achievement often demands visibility. Titles, income, and personal milestones appear as markers of identity. Canada operates on a different scale entirely. Humility carries weight here. Celebrating accomplishments is appreciated, but drawing too much attention to one's own success can feel out of place. The cultural instinct leans toward modesty, unspoken preference for contributing without broadcasting. For many Americans, this shift is profound. The pressure that accompanies constant striving feels noticeably lighter, replaced by a quieter emphasis on balance. Workplaces mirror this cultural rhythm. Offices empty earlier. Weekends remain protected. Even in demanding industries, the national attitude toward rest feels more deliberate. Time off isn't treated as an indulgence, but as an expected part of living, and healthcare, often a source of stress in the U.S., carries a different emotional weight. The absence of looming medical bills allows daily life to unfold with a steadier calm. Canadians express pride and frustration with their system in equal measure, but the underlying foundation offers a sense of security that subtly reshapes the meaning of risk, responsibility, and personal stability. In social spaces, a unique pattern emerges. Canadians are friendly, often warm, but not immediately intimate. Relationships form gradually, built on consistency rather than speed. Everyday exchanging with a barista, meeting co-workers, interacting with neighbors remain polite and measured, yet rarely intrusive. To many Americans who come from a culture where connection is often rapid and expressive, this can feel unfamiliar. But once trust develops, it tends to run deep, rooted in sincerity rather than performance. The physical environment reinforces these cultural rhythms. Winters strengthen a sense of shared endurance, while summers unfold through festivals, markets, and long evenings in parks and cottage towns. Nature is not a weekend luxury, but a part of national identity, visible in the way cities integrate green spaces, in the popularity of outdoor recreation, and in the collective appreciation for quiet escapes up north. Seasonal life in Canada becomes not a backdrop, but a character of its own, subtly shaping the emotional landscape that Americans step into. As the weeks pass, everyday encounters illustrate these deeper cultural patterns. A bus driver waits an extra moment for a running passenger. A convenience store clerk apologizes even when not at fault. A stranger offers directions without expecting conversation in return. These gestures seem small, yet collectively they signal a society built on consideration rather than competition. For Americans, who often navigate more assertive public spaces, this gentler dynamic can feel like stepping into an alternate version of North American Leafeon, where the volume has been turned down, but the humanity has been amplified. As months pass, the most unexpected transformation often happens quietly. Many Americans begin to move through Canada with a softened awareness, noticing details that once slipped by, and noticed steadiness of a neighborhood after fresh snowfall, the unspoken rhythm of people taking turns, the way strangers pause rather than rush. These habits, once foreign, begin to feel natural. Patience no longer feels like sacrifice, and calm no longer feels like inefficiency. Instead, these behaviors become signs of a culture that values emotional steadiness as a form of collective well-being. What emerges next is a shift in mindset. The American instinct toward constant acceleration gradually loosens as Canadians' quieter worldview leaves its imprint. Many describe feeling less pressure to perform, less urgency to explain themselves, less need to measure each day through accomplishment. The absence of relentless competition creates a different emotional climate where people can exist without defending their pace. Even simple routines, like taking public transit or shopping for groceries, absorb a sense of shared civility that subtly encourages a gentler way of living. The country's social fabric doesn't demand participation in grand gestures. It asks only for small, steady acts of consideration. Over time, these small acts accumulate into a deeper cultural shift. Americans often find themselves adopting behaviors they once saw as distinctly Canadian, pausing before speaking, giving more space in conversation, thanking service workers instinctively. Even the instinct to say sorry emerges without conscious thought. These aren't just habits, they are reflections of an environment that rewards respect over assertion. And for many, this gradual transformation brings a surprising emotional clarity. Life feels less combative. Public spaces feel safer. Interactions feel lighter. The world seems just a little more manageable. In that steadiness, a new understanding of normal begins to form. Canada doesn't replace the American sense of identity, but it reframes what daily life can feel like when social harmony is treated as a shared responsibility. Many Americans leave with a renewed sensitivity to calm, noticing its absence when they return home. What once seemed ordinary noise, urgency, the constant push toward more suddenly feels louder, and in that contrast lies the true cultural shock, the realization that a different way of living was always possible, shaped not by dramatic changes, but by quiet collective choices. In the end, Canada offers something simple yet a profounder reminder that cultures aren't defined only by what they celebrate, but by the atmosphere they create. And in that atmosphere, many Americans discover a gentler version of themselves, shaped by a country that teaches its lessons softly,